Picture this. You're standing in a grocery store. Frozen food aisle. Minding your own business. Just reaching for a bag of mixed vegetables because you're trying to eat better and life is boring and normal and perfectly fine. And then you look up. And he's there. Your ex. The man who spent 2 full years making your life a living nightmare. The man who slashed tires. Who followed innocent strangers to their cars. Who showed up at your apartment banging on the door so hard the hinges rattled. The man who stole 2 years of your freedom, your confidence, your ability to exist in public without constantly looking over your shoulder. He's right there, 10 feet away, and your entire body seizes up. Your chest tightens. Your hands go cold. Every muscle in your body prepares to run, to fight, to disappear. And then, he grabs his cart and walks away, fast. Not because you scared him. You're 5 feet 4 inches and holding a bag of frozen peas. He walked away because of who you are now. Because of who chooses to stand beside you. Because the scoreboard has completely, irrevocably flipped, and Derek Morrison knows it. I'm Madison. I'm 27 years old. And this is the story of how I went from being a prisoner in my own life to standing in a grocery store watching my abuser power walk away from me like I was the threat. It's also the story of a 6 feet 5 inches MMA fighter named Cameron, a smashed laptop, a farmer's market burrito, and 5 women who finally stood up together and ended a predator's reign of terror. Buckle in. This one's going to take a while. If you've ever felt controlled. If you've ever felt watched. If you've ever made yourself invisible just to survive someone else's obsession, this story is for you. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe if you haven't. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had to disappear just to feel safe? Because you are absolutely not alone. This is going to be a long one. Grab a drink, get comfortable, because this story doesn't just have a beginning and an ending. It has a reckoning. Let's go back to the beginning. His name was Derek Morrison. And when I met him, I was 20 years old and completely, embarrassingly naive about what love was supposed to look like. We met at a college party. He was 23 older, which felt exciting at the time. He was good-looking in that polished, deliberate way. Dark hair, always styled. Clothes that fit just right. The kind of guy who seemed like he had everything figured out while the rest of us were still fumbling through adulthood. He came straight up to me that night and said, with complete confidence, "You're the most beautiful woman in this room and I'd regret it forever if I didn't talk to you." 20-year-old Madison was absolutely gone for that. I want to stop here for a second and talk about something important, because I think a lot of people who've never been in an abusive relationship wonder, how do you not see it coming? How do you not recognize a predator when one's standing right in front of you? The answer is, because they don't look like predators. Not at first. Derek was attentive. He remembered everything I said. He texted good morning every single day. He showed up with my favorite coffee. He wanted to spend every moment with me and made me feel like that was because I was special, not because he was building a cage. He said things like, "I've never felt this way about anyone. You're different from other girls. I don't want to share you with anyone. Is that crazy? You just mean too much to me." And I actually thought, that was romantic. It wasn't. It was the blueprint. I want to walk you through exactly how Derek Morrison dismantled my life, piece by piece, because I think understanding the pattern is important. Not just for this story, but because someone watching this right now might be living this story and not have the language for it yet. It started small. So small. He'd get quiet when I mentioned hanging out with my friends. Not angry, just quiet. Withdrawn. And when I asked what was wrong, he'd say, "Nothing. I just miss you when you're not with me." I know that's stupid. And I'd cancel my plans and stay with him, and he'd be happy again, and I'd feel like I'd done something good. That's the trick. The abuser doesn't demand you isolate yourself. They make you choose isolation because it rewards you. Because choosing them makes them happy, and happy Derek was warm and funny and adoring, and choosing friends made him sad, and sad Derek was cold and distant, and something in me couldn't stand that coldness. So I started choosing him. More and more. Until one day I looked up and realized Jessica. My best friend since freshman year. And I hadn't spent real time together in 4 months. Until I realized I'd stopped going to the Thursday night happy hour my coworkers did. Until I realized I'd turned down 3 invitations to girls' trips because Derek thought it wasn't a good time for us. I hadn't noticed any single door closing. But somehow I'd ended up in a room with no windows. The phone thing started about 8 months in. We were watching a movie at his apartment, and my phone lit up on the coffee table. A text from a guy named Brandon who I'd gone to high school with. He was in Austin for work and wanted to get coffee and catch up. Derek glanced at the notification. He didn't say anything, but the temperature in the room changed. I could feel it. That particular silence that meant something was wrong, but he wasn't going to tell me what. "Who's Brandon?" he finally said. "Casual. Almost too casual." I explained. "High school friend. Haven't seen him in 3 years. Just wants to catch up." Derek nodded slowly. "Okay." More silence. "Okay, what?" I asked. "Nothing. You should go." He stopped. Sighed. "What?" "I've just noticed that a lot of your friends are guys. And I don't know how to feel about that sometimes. I know that's my insecurity. I know it's not your problem. I'm working on it." I felt terrible. I felt like I'd done something wrong by having male friends. I texted Brandon back that I was busy. Months later, Derek knew my phone password. I didn't remember giving it to him. I just noticed one day that he had it. And by then the idea of asking why, of expressing any objection to it, felt like starting a fight I didn't have the energy for. He read my texts regularly. He asked about every male contact in my phone. He'd check my location through Find My Friends, which he'd asked me to enable, just so he didn't worry when I was out late. The worry framing. Always the worry framing. He was never controlling. He was just anxious. He was just protective. He just loved me so much it made him nervous sometimes. That's what I told myself. That's what he told me to tell myself. I'm going to be honest with you. I can't walk you through every moment of 4 years. Partly because the video would be 12 hours long. But mostly because a lot of it is blurry, the way trauma is blurry. You remember the sharpest peaks, the moments that shook you the most, but the long grey stretches of just enduring it tend to blur together. What I can tell you is that it escalated. The isolation grew. My world got smaller and smaller. By year 2, I was essentially asking permission to do things. Not literally, he never said, "You can't go." He was smarter than that. But I knew which things would cause a fight, which things would cause the silence, which things would mean days of him being cold and distant and me apologizing for things I hadn't done. By year 3, I didn't really have a social life anymore. I had work, and I had Derek, and I had this constant low-grade anxiety that had become so normal I'd stopped recognizing it as anxiety. I just thought that was what adult life felt like. By year 4, I was afraid of him. Not afraid he would hit me. He never hit me. I think people hear abusive relationship and picture black eyes and broken bones. But Derek was too smart for that, or maybe too cowardly. The kind of control he ran on didn't need physical violence. It ran on fear and guilt and that particular exhaustion that comes from never feeling safe enough to relax. I was afraid of his moods. Of the silence. Of the way he could make me feel small without raising his voice. Of the look he'd give me sometimes. This cold, flat stare that felt like a warning I couldn't decode. And I was afraid by then of what leaving would look like. Because I knew Derek well enough to know that losing control of something wasn't something he could accept. And I was something he'd spent 4 years building control over. I left on a Tuesday. He was at work. I'd planned it for 3 weeks. Talked to Jessica in whispered phone calls on my lunch breaks because I couldn't call from home. He checked the call log. Researched resources online using my work computer because he had access to our shared internet history at home. That last month, I'd moved money slowly into a separate account he didn't know about. Not much, I don't have much, but enough to cover first and last month's rent somewhere new. I'd found an apartment online. Small. Nothing special. But mine. I packed 2 bags while he was at work. Clothes, my laptop, documents, a few things that mattered to me. Left almost everything else behind. The furniture was his. Most of the kitchenware was his. I left a note on the kitchen counter that said simply, "I'm leaving. Please don't contact me." Then I loaded my car and drove to Jessica's apartment, where I sat on her bathroom floor and shook for about an hour. I thought the hard part was over. I was very, very wrong. I moved into my new apartment on a Wednesday. Small 1-bedroom, 3rd floor, South Austin. I remember standing in the empty living room with my 2 bags and thinking, this is mine. This is mine and he doesn't know where it is and I am free. That feeling lasted approximately 24 hours. The next day, Thursday, I went to Target. This was a mistake, in retrospect, not because of anything I did wrong, but because Derek had been following me. I didn't know that yet. I didn't know the full shape of what the next 2 years would look like. I was just a newly single 23-year-old who needed cleaning supplies for her new apartment. I was in the cleaning supplies aisle, comparing prices on dish soap, when a guy caught my eye from a few feet away. He was around my age, average looking, seemed to be debating between 2 brands of paper towels. Our eyes met. He smiled. Not a flirtatious smile. Not, "Hey, I'm interested" smile. Just a normal, baseline human smile. The kind you give strangers in stores every single day as a social nicety. The kind that means, "Hello, fellow human, we are both buying cleaning products. Isn't life mundane and relatable?" I smiled back. Nothing happened. We both continued shopping. I checked out. I drove to my new apartment. I unpacked my cleaning supplies and felt, for a few hours, like a normal person. Then the banging started. The sound hit me before the words did. 3 hard, heavy knocks. Not a knock knock knock. More like, boom, boom, boom. The sound of a fist that doesn't care about being subtle. My whole body went cold. I stood in the middle of my living room, still surrounded by boxes, still hadn't even put sheets on the bed, and I didn't move. Just stood there, frozen, while my brain tried to convince my body that it could just be a neighbor, it could just be a delivery, it could be anyone, it didn't have to be Madison. His voice came through the door like it was made of gravel. Low, controlled, but with this edge underneath it. This coiled thing. "I know you're in there." My legs finally moved. I got to the door and I did not open it. I want to be clear, I did not open the door, but I stood on the other side of it with my hand over my mouth trying not to make a sound. "I saw you at Target," he said. Slightly louder now. Slightly less controlled. "I saw that guy looking at you." And there it was. There was the whole thing, compressed into 2 sentences. He'd followed me. To Target. On my first full day of freedom. He'd followed me, watched me smile at a stranger, and had somehow gotten my new address. My address that I had not given him. My address that I'd been deliberately careful to keep secret. And now he was outside my door at 9 o'clock at night, vibrating with rage over a 4-second smile exchanged with a stranger in a cleaning supplies aisle. "You think you can just move on," he said. "You think I'm going to let some random guy think he has a chance with you?" I called the police from my bedroom, sitting on the floor with my knees pulled up to my chest. I kept my voice very low and very steady, the way you do when you're terrified, but also acutely aware that if you sound too terrified you might escalate something. The officers came. They were there in about 12 minutes, which felt like 12 years. By the time they arrived, Derek had shifted. That was the thing about Derek. The switch he could flip. By the time the officers knocked on my door and I opened it to see them standing there, and Derek standing a respectful distance away with his hands in his pockets, He was completely composed, polite, calm, slightly sad around the eyes, like a man dealing with a difficult situation he wished he could handle better. He explained that we'd recently broken up, that emotions were running high, that he'd seen his ex-girlfriend out and wanted to check on her, that he probably shouldn't have come by so late, and he was sorry for disturbing the neighbors, the officers. And I am not blaming them, because Derek had a gift for this. Derek was truly extraordinary at this particular performance. Told us both essentially to move on with our lives. Gave me a pamphlet about the domestic violence hotline. Suggested Derek give me some space. And that was it. Derek walked to his car, turned once at the driver's side door, and looked at me across the parking lot. No expression. Just looked. Then he got in and drove away. I stood in my doorway and realized, with a clarity that felt like ice water, this is not over. Let me walk you through the next few months, because this is where I need you to understand something crucial about what Derek was doing. He never touched me. He never threatened me directly. He was careful, so careful, to keep himself just outside the legal threshold for what could land him in real trouble. What he did instead was make the men around me suffer. The coffee shop was the second incident. I'm going to call it an incident because that's the clinical word, and sometimes clinical distance is the only way I can talk about this without losing it. About 2 weeks after the Target parking lot standoff, I was at a coffee shop near my office. A local place I'd been going to for a year. Good lattes. The kind of place where the staff learns your order. The barista that day was a kid. 19, maybe 20. The kind of young that makes him look barely old enough to be there. His name tag said Jake. He was chatty in that easy, natural way that people who work in customer service sometimes are. Small talk while making your drink, commenting on a rainy Tuesday, the kind of conversation that exists and is forgotten in the same breath. He made my latte. I thanked him. I left. An hour later, on my lunch break, I walked past the coffee shop and saw a police cruiser parked outside. I didn't stop. I told myself it was nothing. That evening, I saw it on the coffee shop's Facebook page. A post from the owner asking if anyone had witnessed anything in the parking lot that morning. A staff member's car had had all 4 tires slashed. I knew. I knew in the way you know things when you've spent 4 years learning the patterns of a particular kind of cruelty. Jake didn't make the connection. There was no reason he would. He hadn't done anything, hadn't even had a real conversation with me. Just made a coffee and said something about the weather. The slashed tires would have seemed random to him. Senseless vandalism. But I knew it wasn't random. I knew it was a message. For me. 3 weeks later, I joined a gym shortly after moving into my new apartment. Exercise a survival strategy. Something to do with the adrenaline that kept surging through my body at random hours. Something that got me out of the apartment and into a space with other people and bright lights. I was on the elliptical when a man got on the one next to mine and, after a few minutes of working out, said, "Hey, are you done with the cable machine? When you're done, I mean no rush." That was it. That was the entire interaction. He wasn't even talking to me, really. He was asking about a machine. The kind of question people ask at gyms every day. The kind of question that has a one-word answer and 0 emotional content. I said yes. I'd be done in a minute. He smiled and thanked me and went back to his workout. When his session was over, he walked to his car in the gym parking lot and found Derek waiting for him. I found out about it secondhand, from the gym staff, who told me after the man came back inside. Apparently, Derek had been in the parking lot, had approached the man, gotten in his face, told him to stay away from me. That any guy who thought he could talk to his girlfriend was making a mistake. His girlfriend. He still thought of me as his girlfriend. 8 weeks after I'd moved out. 8 weeks of slashed tires and parking lot confrontations and door-banging visits. He still thought of me as his girlfriend. The gym reviewed their security footage. They saw Derek in the parking lot. They banned him from the property. He was banned from my gym. And it still didn't stop. I need to tell you about the 2 years. Not event by event. There were too many events. Too many little moments of fear and restriction, and the particular exhaustion of constant hypervigilance. But I need you to feel the weight of it, because without that weight, the rest of this story doesn't make full sense. 2 years. For 2 years, my world shrank. I stopped going to the farmer's market I'd loved every Saturday morning. Derek had found me there twice, and the second time he'd stood 30 feet away and just watched me, smiling that cold warning smile, for almost 20 minutes before walking away. So I stopped going. I stopped making eye contact with men. Strangers, colleagues, anyone. I learned to look through people, to not register eye contact that could be interpreted as invitation. I became an expert in being invisible. I stopped dating, obviously. Stopped even thinking about dating. What would be the point? Every man I expressed the smallest interest in, every man who expressed the smallest interest in me, ended up punished for it. Slashed tires. Threatening confrontations. Property damage. Derek was careful. He never did anything that rose to the level of real legal consequence. Always stopped just short. Always had some excuse or alibi. But the message was consistent and clear. Asterisk, you are mine. Anyone who doesn't understand that will learn. Asterisk. I filed for a restraining order. I should tell you that because I want anyone in a similar situation to know. I tried. I did the right things. I went to the courthouse. I filled out the forms. I submitted my statements. The judge denied it. Because Derek, in all his calculated precision, had never actually threatened me. Had never physically harmed me. The incidents, the slashed tires, the parking lot confrontation, could not be definitively connected to him. He had plausible deniability for most of it, and the incidents he couldn't deny weren't directed at me. The law, as it stood in that moment, in that jurisdiction, for that judge, was not enough to protect me from what Derek Morrison was doing. So I stayed invisible, and I got better and better at it. I was 25 years old, and I lived like someone twice that age with something to hide. I went to work, and I went home. Occasionally I saw Jessica, at her apartment, where I knew Derek didn't know to look. Occasionally I talked to my mom on the phone and tried not to let her hear how terrified I was because she'd tell me to come home to Ohio, and part of me wanted to, and part of me refused to let Derek win that completely. I was a graphic designer. Good job, stable income. Work I was genuinely proud of. I had my apartment. I had my routines. I had built a life in Austin, and that life was mine. But I was surviving it, not living it. There's a difference. There's a huge, devastating, unbridgeable difference. Surviving is what you do when living feels too dangerous. I was surviving. And then my laptop died. It was a deadline day. Deadline days are already their own particular flavor of terrible. The kind of day where everything feels slightly too fast, slightly too close, where your coffee goes cold before you remember to drink it, and you can't tell if the headache behind your eyes is stress or dehydration or both. I was in the middle of a branding project. Full logo suite, brand guidelines, color palette, the whole thing. For a restaurant client who'd already pushed the deadline back twice and was, as of 2:30 p.m. on this particular Wednesday, expecting final deliverables by end of business. My laptop gave one warning flicker. Then the screen went black. The silence of a dead computer is its own distinct sound. The sudden absence of fan noise. The nothing where there was something. That nothing landed in my chest like a stone. I stared at the black screen for about 10 seconds, pressing the power button with increasing force, as though firmness of intention could bring hardware back to life through sheer will. It did not. My backup files were on the cloud but incomplete. I'd been working fast and hadn't saved everything. The deadline was in 3 hours. My laptop was dead. My hands were shaking slightly, and my heart rate had done that specific spike that happens when your nervous system decides that a work emergency and an existential threat are basically the same situation. I grabbed my bag. Grabbed the dead laptop. Basically ran out of the building. The electronics repair shop was 2 blocks from my office. I'd walked past it dozens of times without going in. The kind of place you register as exists, possibly useful someday, without ever actually needing. That Wednesday, I needed it. I went in practically at a sprint, probably looking completely unhinged, eyes too wide, dead laptop clutched to my chest like a wounded bird. The bell above the door chimed, and I looked up. I have to stop here for a moment. Because this is the moment. This seemed like a boring Tuesday until your whole life pivoted moment. And I want to describe it correctly. Cameron Chen was behind the counter. I didn't know his name yet. I didn't know anything about him yet. What I registered in the first 3 seconds was enormous. I'm 5'4". I'm not a small person in the grand scheme of things, but I am small enough that I've developed a pretty calibrated sense of height and size in relation to myself. Cameron was at least 6'5", maybe more. Broad the way buildings are broad. Not a gym vanity broad, but a structural broad, the kind of width that exists because a body that size needs that much framework. His hands, resting flat on the counter as he looked up from whatever he'd been working on, were genuinely the largest human hands I'd ever seen in person. Like, hands that could hold a basketball the way a normal person holds a tennis ball. His face had a history written on it. A nose that had clearly been broken at least once, healed slightly off-center in the way that somehow doesn't look wrong, just lived in. A scar through his left eyebrow, thin, silvery white, the kind that comes from something sharp at high speed. His eyes were dark brown, and when they met mine they were sharp in that way that sometimes means cold but was, I would come to understand later, actually the opposite. It was the kind of sharp that comes from paying attention. He looked terrifying. I say this not to be unkind, but because it's the truth, and because it's important. Cameron Chen, behind his repair shop counter, to an unfamiliar person at first glance, looked terrifying. And then he smiled. And it was the gentlest smile I'd seen in years. "Hey," he said. His voice was low, the kind of low that comes from a chest that has room for it. "It's okay. Take a breath." I realized I was still clutching my laptop like a life preserver. "My laptop died," I said. "It came out more desperate than I intended. I have a deadline in 3 hours and my files aren't fully backed up, and I have a client who's already pushed this back twice and..." "Hey," he said again. Same gentle tone. "We'll figure it out. Let me take a look." I set the laptop on the counter. He turned it over in his hands. Those enormous hands handling it with careful precision, like someone who was very practiced at being gentle with fragile things. He plugged in a diagnostic cable. His expression was focused but calm, the kind of calm that is actually contagious if you're around it for more than a few seconds. "What do you do?" he asked, eyes still on the screen. "Graphic design. Big files. Always." He made a small sound. Not alarmed. Just acknowledging. "What's backed up?" I explained. He listened. He asked a few technical questions in a way that made it clear he wasn't just nodding along, but actually processing the information, building a picture. "I can have this fixed in an hour," he said finally. "It's not the hard drive. That's good. Charging circuit issue. Your files are fine. Go next door." He nodded toward the wall. "There's a cafe. Get yourself something. Breathe. Come back in an hour and I'll have it sorted." I stared at him. An hour seemed impossibly fast. He looked at me over the top of the laptop, and something in his expression was almost amused. "I've got you," he said. "I promise." I should have said, "Don't be nice to me. Being nice to me is dangerous. There's a man who watches me and he punishes men who are kind to me. So please stop looking at me like I'm a person, and please stop smiling at me, and please for the love of God do not tell me you've got me, because that phrase is going to lodge itself in my chest and I already have too many things to manage." I should have said all of that. I said, "Thank you." Then I went to the cafe next door and sat at a corner table and pressed my palms flat on the wooden surface and concentrated on breathing for 5 minutes until my heartbeat returned to something like normal. Then I ordered a coffee and stared out the window at the street and thought about everything and nothing. The way you do when your body is still running on adrenaline that has nowhere to go. Exactly 1 hour and 3 minutes later, I went back. My laptop was open on the counter, screen bright, fully functional. He'd not only fixed the charging issue but had also updated the operating system and cleared out some corrupted cache files that had been slowing it down. "Wow," I said, actually meaning it. He shrugged, but he was smiling. The update's going to make things run faster. Should help on deadline days. How much do I owe you? For the part, $42. Labor's on the house. I looked up from my wallet. Labor should absolutely not be free. You just saved my entire day. First time customer discount. He said it easily, like it wasn't generous at all. That's not a real policy. It is now. He slid a business card across the counter. We're here 6 days a week. Anything tech-related breaks, you know where to find me. I picked up the card. Cameron Chen. Austin Tech Solutions. His name and a number. I should have left. I should have taken my laptop and thanked him and walked out of that shop and never gone back. Because the kindness of a stranger at a repair counter was not something I could afford. Instead, I said, "You saved my life today. Seriously. Thank you." "Anytime," he said. And he meant it. I made it exactly half a block. The afternoon sun was still warm, the sidewalk busy with the usual Austin lunch hour traffic, and I had my laptop under my arm, and my relief was so enormous I'd almost let myself feel okay for a moment. Almost let myself think, that was just a nice interaction. That can just be a normal thing that happened. Not everything has to be. I saw him. Derek was across the street, leaning against a building with his arms crossed, utterly still in the way that particular stillness means something, in the way that a completely motionless thing in a busy moving scene draws the eye exactly because of that stillness. He was looking directly at me. When our eyes met, he didn't look away. He just smiled. Not the polite smile of a stranger. Not the warm smile of someone glad to see you. The smile of someone who wants you to know they haven't gone anywhere. The smile that was a message. I see you. I'm always going to see you. My stomach dropped through the sidewalk. I kept walking. Faster. Back to my office. Into the elevator, up to my floor, to my desk, where I sat down and stared at my fixed laptop and tried to remember how to breathe. I didn't make my deadline, got a 1-hour extension, finished the project at 6 p.m., sent it off, and then sat very still in the emptying office for 20 minutes before I trusted myself to drive. Here's the thing about that evening that I'm still not sure I fully understand. On my drive home from the office, I took the long route. The route that went past the repair shop. I don't know exactly what I was expecting. Some part of me, I think, had already decided it was my fault. That being kind to Cameron, or letting Cameron be kind to me, had created a debt, and Derek would be coming to collect it. Slashed tires. A confrontation. Something. The shop lights were still on. Cameron was visible through the glass, still at the counter, bent over something. Working late. I parked across the street and I watched. I know how that sounds. I know, I parked and watched, is not a sentence that sounds sane in isolation. But I need you to understand the context. I was watching because I was afraid. Afraid that at any moment Derek's car would pull up. Afraid that the gentleness of a man I just met was about to get punished because of me. Afraid of the weight of that. Nothing happened. Cameron worked. Puttered. At 7 p.m., he locked up the front door, turned off most of the lights, walked out the back, and emerged in the alley in a truck that was genuinely enormous. One of those full-size pickups that seems almost comically large on city streets, and drove away. No Derek. No incident. I sat in my car for another 5 minutes after his truck disappeared. Then I went home. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, I went straight to the repair shop's Facebook page. Not to leave a review, to check. Checking for anything. A post about vandalism. A negative comment. Anything that would confirm what I knew was coming. There was nothing. A post from 2 days ago about a phone screen replacement service. A photo of a before and after laptop repair. Nothing concerning. At lunch, I walked past the shop. I didn't go in. I just walked past, slowly enough to see through the glass. Cameron was there. Alive and entirely fine, cheerfully helping a customer with what appeared to be a desktop tower. He looked up, saw me through the window, and raised a hand. I waved back and kept walking. My heart was pounding, but not from fear. From something else. Something I didn't have a name for yet. 3 days passed. Derek didn't come to my apartment. Cameron's shop showed no signs of vandalism. There were no incidents, no confrontations, no slashed anything. I didn't understand it. 2 years of watching every interaction become a weapon, and suddenly, nothing? The silence was, in its own way, its own kind of anxiety. Because I'd learned, with Derek, silence didn't mean absence. Silence sometimes meant he was planning something, watching, waiting. Silence was just a longer breath before the next strike. But the week passed, and nothing happened. I hadn't been to the farmer's market in over a year. It used to be a Saturday ritual, the kind of small, ordinary happiness that you don't properly appreciate until it's taken from you. Fresh vegetables. Local honey. The woman who sold handmade candles that smelled like cedar and vanilla. The food trucks lined up on the south end, the one that made breakfast burritos that were genuinely in the top 5 things I'd ever eaten. Derek had found me there twice. The second time, he'd stood and watched me for 20 minutes and I'd had to leave before I'd finished shopping, hands shaking, groceries abandoned on a vendor's table. After that, I'd stopped going. But it was a Saturday morning and the sun was out, and something about the past week of nothing had made me restless and brave in equal measure. I decided to go. I parked a block away, out of habit. A habit I developed after 2 years of wanting easy exits from any public space. I told myself I'd just go for 30 minutes. Get some tomatoes. Maybe the honey if the candle woman was there. In and out. I was examining tomatoes at a produce stand. Actually allowing myself to feel the good weight of them in my hand. Actually letting myself just be a person at a farmer's market. When a voice behind me said, "Madison." My whole body clenched. I turned. Cameron was standing 3 feet away, reusable shopping bag in hand, wearing athletic shorts and a tank top. Even in casual weekend clothes, he was, there's no other word for it, a lot. Like a building that wandered into the vegetable section. His arms in a tank top were considerably more alarming than his arms in a long-sleeved work shirt. He looked as surprised to see me as I was to see him, which was reassuring. "Hey," I said, working hard to sound casual. "I didn't know you came here." "Every Saturday," he said. He nodded toward the far end of the market. "There's a vendor down there that makes these breakfast burritos." "With the green chili?" I blurted, then felt silly. His whole face lit up. "Yes. Have you had them?" "I used to come here every week before." I stopped. "I used to come every week. I haven't been in a while." He tilted his head slightly. Not prying. Just present. "Come on," he said. "My treat. Consider it belated thanks for being a new customer. You already gave me the first time discount. And now I'm buying you a burrito. Life is full of bonuses. Come on." We got 2 burritos and 2 fresh squeezed lemonades from a vendor who seemed to personally know Cameron, and greeted him with the warm familiarity of a regular. We found a spot under a large live oak at the edge of the market. One of those beautiful Austin oaks with the sprawling low branches that create a kind of canopy. We sat in the shade and we ate. And then, for the first time in what felt like years, I had a conversation with someone who wasn't Jessica or my mother or a work colleague I had to maintain professional distance with. Cameron talked about growing up in Minnesota. Middle child of 3 brothers. His dad had been a mechanic. Cameron had inherited the hands-on ability to fix things, which was how the repair shop had started. He'd moved to Austin 5 years ago, initially for a job that hadn't worked out, then discovered the city and stayed. He was easy to talk to. That's the thing I remember most clearly from that first real conversation. How easy it was. There was no performance required, no walking on eggshells, no careful calculation of whether what I said might be received badly. He asked questions because he was curious, not to gather ammunition. He laughed when something was funny, and it was a real laugh. "You fix technology and you fight professionally?" I said at some point. That's a pretty unusual combination. He grinned. Technology is the job. Fighting is the... He paused, considering. The other thing I can't figure out how to stop. When did you start training? I was 15. Fighting in actual bouts. 19. I've had 12 fights. Won 9. There it was. The thing I'd been both waiting for and hoping wouldn't come. You're a fighter, I said. I know, he said. I know what that sounds like. People assume it means aggressive, uncontrolled, some kind of time bomb. But it's actually the opposite. The better you get at fighting, the more you realize how little reason you actually have to fight. The only time I use any of it is in the cage, under rules, with a ref, where both of us signed up for it. He took a bite of his burrito. Fighting teaches you control, discipline. When you really know how to hurt someone, you become very careful about not doing it. I was quiet for a moment. Part of me wanted to get up and leave. The word fighter had a whole texture to it now, a whole set of associations Derek had built into me over 4 years. Men who were physically powerful, physically large, physically imposing were dangerous, because that power was a weapon they might eventually turn on you. But Cameron didn't look at me the way Derek had ever looked at me. Derek's gaze had always had something proprietary in it. You are mine, you are something I possess. Cameron just looked at me the way you look at someone you find interesting. What's your style? I asked. He blinked, like he hadn't expected the question. Primarily boxing. Striking. I'm weakest on the ground. Wrestling is my biggest gap. He tilted his head. You know MMA? No. But I asked a question, which means I want to learn something. He smiled slowly. Like that answer pleased him. We talked for 2 hours. When we finally stood to go, we'd long since finished the burritos, the lemonades, most of the morning. He asked if he could have my number, and I froze. He noticed. Because Cameron was very good, I would come to understand, at noticing things. No pressure, he said immediately. I had a really nice time talking. That's all. I stood there with the decision hanging in the air between us. Every instinct I'd spent 2 years building told me, no. Said, this ends badly. Said, you know what happens when a man shows interest in you. You know what Derek does to men who show interest in you. This man is large and gentle and you want to protect him. And the way to protect him is to never see him again. But I was so tired. I was tired of being afraid. I was tired of making myself invisible. I was tired of shrinking. I was tired of letting Derek win, over and over, in every small silent way. Every time I looked at the floor or walked faster or said no to something that didn't deserve a no. I gave Cameron my number. I went home and spent the rest of the day second-guessing it. He texted at 7:30 that evening. Thanks for this morning. That was really nice. Would you want to get dinner sometime? I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then I typed, I need to tell you something first. He responded immediately. Okay. And I told him. I told him about Derek. About the 4 years. About leaving. About the threats that started the day after I moved out. About the slashed tires and the parking lot confrontation and the gym incident. About the failed restraining order. About the 2 years of invisible prison. About the pattern. Any man who was kind to me or I was kind to paid for it. I typed it all out on my phone, sitting on my couch in the gathering dark, sending it in chunks when it got too long, and I told him all of it without softening it or making it smaller or apologizing for it. And then I put my phone face down on the cushion next to me and waited. The rational outcome was that he'd respond politely and then find a reason to exit. I'd given him every reason to exit. No one should have to walk into that. I'd handed him a roadmap of a minefield and the reasonable response was, thanks for the warning, I'm going to take a different road. My phone buzzed. That's horrible. I'm sorry you've been dealing with that. It sounds incredibly exhausting and scary. I exhaled. Another buzz. But here's the thing, Madison. I'm not afraid of your ex. And I'd really like to take you to dinner. I read it 3 times. Then I said yes. The restaurant was a nice Italian place downtown. The kind with tablecloths and actual stemware, not the kind with laminated menus and a TV over the bar. Cameron had chosen it. I found out later he'd asked a colleague for a recommendation and had specifically requested somewhere that feels safe and not overwhelming. He'd thought about what I might need. I scanned the restaurant for Derek's face 3 times before we were even seated. Then twice more after we sat down. Cameron noticed. He didn't comment. He just ordered us both water and, when the server left, said, "Take whatever time you need." I nodded. Did one more sweep of the room. Forced myself to stop. Derek wasn't there. It was just an Italian restaurant on a Tuesday evening, full of normal people having normal dinners. "Thank you for coming," Cameron said. "I know this wasn't simple. Nothing is simple for me lately," I said. "But I'm here." "You're here," he agreed and smiled. We talked for 3 hours. About his upcoming fight in 3 weeks. His opponent had a wrestling background that concerned his coaches, and Cameron was spending extra time on his grappling defense in training. About my work, the branding project I just wrapped, the portfolio I was building, the design philosophy I'd been developing. About Austin and what had brought each of us here. About our families. He was engaged and curious and funny in a dry way, a way that crept up on you. You'd be halfway through a laugh before you even registered you'd heard a joke. After dinner, he walked me to my car. Evening air. Austin street sounds. Faint music from a bar a block away. "I had a really nice time," he said. "Me too." And I meant it. Really, genuinely meant it. "Can we do this again?" I looked at him. Took him in. The size of him, the gentleness of him. The way he'd spent the whole evening making space for me and not pushing against it. "Yes," I said. He smiled. Waited until I got in my car and locked the doors and started the engine. Then he walked to his own truck. I sat in the parking lot for a minute before pulling out. Letting myself feel the warmth of a good evening. Just for a moment. We started seeing each other regularly. 2 dates became 3. 3 became 4. He never pushed for more than I was ready to offer. Never pushed for more than holding hands, a brief kiss goodnight, an arm around my shoulders at his fight 3 weeks in. He seemed to understand, without my having to explain it every time, that I was somewhere between starting over and still learning to trust the ground under my feet. And Derek didn't show up. For 3 full weeks, Derek didn't appear at a single location I went to. Cameron's shop remained unvandalized. No threatening encounters in parking lots. No cold watching eyes from across the street. I didn't understand it. After 2 years of predictable escalation, this absence was its own particular discomfort. The silence of a held breath. The waiting for a shoe that hadn't dropped. Something had changed. I just didn't know what yet. 3 weeks in, Cameron had his fight. He'd given me 2 tickets. I brought Jessica, who had, upon learning I was dating someone, full stop, for the first time in years, reacted with a level of excitement that was almost concerning. "A fighter," she said when I told her, on the phone. At nearly 11 p.m. She didn't lower her voice. "He's not aggressive," I said. "I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying, Madison, you're dating someone. You're going out in public. You came to the farmer's market. She exhaled. "You're living again." She wasn't wrong. The fight was at a venue on the east side, a mid-sized event, professional level production with real lights and a legitimate cage. I'd never watched MMA before in any context other than half hearing it from another room. Sitting cage side was a different experience entirely. It was brutal. The first few minutes, I found myself flinching at every exchange. The sound of impact is different when it's not filtered through a screen. Louder, sharper, more immediate. It made my chest tighten in a way I had to consciously manage. But then Cameron landed a combination in the opening minute of round 2 that was, there's no other word for it, beautiful. Clean, precise, perfectly timed. His opponent didn't go down immediately, but you could see the calculation shift. Then Cameron landed a right hand that the venue's entire crowd heard, and his opponent's legs went, and the referee was in immediately. Cameron won. Second round. Technical knockout. The crowd erupted. Jessica was out of her seat. "Your boyfriend just knocked someone out," she yelled directly into my ear. "I know," I said, and found, to my own surprise, that I was grinning. We found him in the locker room corridor after. His face was already starting to bruise along the cheekbone. He'd taken one clean shot in the first round, and his knuckles were still wrapped. He looked like someone had been mildly rough with him. He was grinning anyway. When he saw me, his whole expression changed. Not the fight grin. Something softer. "You came," he said. "Of course I came." He crossed the space between us in 2 steps and kissed me. Right there in the corridor, in front of his coaches and his teammates and Jessica making some sound behind me that I chose not to analyze. It was the first real kiss. Not the brief, careful goodnight kind. A real kiss, with everything behind it that had been building for 3 weeks. It tasted like sweat and adrenaline and something that felt, startlingly, like relief. When we pulled apart, Jessica was very loudly pretending to look somewhere else. "You're my girlfriend," Cameron said. Not asking. More like he was saying it out loud to hear how it sounded. "Yeah," I said. "I am." The word that had not meant safety for 4 years. Girlfriend. The word Derek had weaponized into a chain. The word that had meant property, possession, object. In Cameron's mouth it sounded like none of those things. It sounded like a beginning. We went out to celebrate with his whole team. Cameron introduced me to everyone with his arm around my shoulders. "This is Madison, my girlfriend." Said it every time, each time with the same easy warmth. Like I was something good that had happened. Later, when everyone had filtered out and it was just the 2 of us in the parking lot, Cameron leaned against his truck and said, "I need to tell you something." The old anxiety. My chest tightening. The bracing for impact. "Your ex came to see me," he said. Everything in me went very still. "About 2 weeks ago. That's when everything, the incidents you mentioned, the behavior, that's when it stopped, right?" I thought back. Yes, it had stopped exactly around then. I'd noticed but hadn't understood why. "He came to the shop," Cameron said. His voice was even. Factual. Like he was recounting something that had happened to someone else. "He waited until I was alone. Came in. Started making threats. Told me to stay away from you. Ran through his history. The things he'd done to other men who talked to you. The things he could do. Real detailed about it. I think he wanted me to understand the scope of what he was capable of." I couldn't speak. "Cameron." "Madison." His voice was gentle but firm. "Let me finish." I nodded. "So, he's standing there," Cameron continued, "doing his whole thing. And I just listened. Let him say everything. Watched him build to his big finish. Whatever he thought was going to scare me." He paused. "Then, when he was done, I told him who I was. What I do. How long I've trained. That I've been hit by the best strikers in Texas. That I've been taken down by some of the best wrestlers in this region. And that if he ever came near you again, if he ever texted you or drove past your apartment or looked at you sideways in a parking lot, I would find him. And it wouldn't be a threat. It would be a promise." A long silence. "What did he do?" I asked. He tried to maintain it for about 10 seconds. "You know how some guys go quiet but you can see them recalculating? That's what he did. Then he left. Haven't heard from him since." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Settled on a strange combination of both. "You threatened him." I made him understand consequences. He met my eyes. There's a difference. I didn't tell him to be afraid. I told him what the outcome would be if he kept making choices that hurt you. That's not a threat. That's honesty. He reached across and took my hand. Madison, I know you've spent 2 years protecting everyone around you, trying to keep everyone safe from him. You don't have to protect me. I can take care of myself. And more importantly, I want to take care of you. I sat with that for a moment. No one had said those words to me in a long time. Not in a way that felt like safety rather than possession. I want to take care of you. Not, you belong to me. Not, I'll decide what's safe for you. I want to take care of you. Because he'd chosen to. Because he meant it. The difference between those two things is everything. 4 months. That's how long it took before I stopped checking every parking lot like I was entering enemy territory. Before restaurants stopped feeling like escape room calculations. Before I could sit with my back to a window without my pulse climbing. Before silence stopped sounding dangerous. Healing didn't happen all at once. It happened in tiny moments. A grocery run alone. A crowded coffee shop. A full night of sleep. And Cameron was there through all of it. Not fixing me. Not controlling me. Just staying. That mattered more than anything. Over those months he won 3 more fights. I went to every one. Ringside. Close enough to hear gloves land. Close enough to hear coaches shouting combinations. Somewhere along the way, I started understanding the sport. The footwork. The setups. The timing. You notice details most people miss, his coach told me one night. I almost laughed. I spent years studying danger, I said. He nodded slowly like he understood exactly what I meant. The apartment above Cameron's repair shop smelled like motor oil and protein powder. My apartment smelled like panic attacks. So one night he looked at me across takeout containers and said, "Let's build something new." Not, "Move into my place." Not, "You'll be safer with me." Something new. Together. That difference mattered. House hunting with Cameron was strangely emotional. He checked crime reports. Walked neighborhoods at night. Tested locks. Looked at sightlines from windows. At one house I caught him quietly checking how fast emergency services could reach the address. "You don't have to do all this," I told him. "I know." He looked at me for a second. "I want to." 3 weeks later we found it. Small house. Quiet street. Big oak tree in the front yard. Warm yellow porch light. Safe. The landlord, Patricia, looked Cameron up and down and said, "Well, you look like you could carry a refrigerator by yourself." "I can," Cameron admitted. "Good. This neighborhood needs more decent men." Cameron laughed so hard he almost dropped the paperwork. That was the first night in years I slept without waking up at every sound. Living with Cameron taught me something embarrassing. I had no idea what a healthy relationship looked like. I thought disagreements meant punishment. I thought silence meant anger. I thought tension meant danger. Then one night Cameron came home late from training. No text. No call. By the time he walked through the door, I was already spiraling. "You couldn't send one message?" I snapped. He froze. Not angry. Just surprised. Then he nodded once. "You're right. I should have called." That was it. No screaming. No manipulation. No punishment. Just accountability. And suddenly I was crying so hard I couldn't breathe. Cameron crossed the kitchen slowly like he was approaching a frightened animal. "Hey," he said softly. "Talk to me." So I did. About Derek. About fear. About how every argument used to become emotional warfare. Cameron listened quietly. Then he rested his forehead against mine and said, "We're going to fight fair." 4 words. 4 words that changed something inside me forever. 5 months later, I had a panic attack in a crowded restaurant. 1 second I was listening to a story. The next, The room felt too small to breathe in. Sound warped. My chest locked. My hands went numb. I genuinely thought Derek was there, watching me, waiting. I made it to the bathroom before the shaking got bad. Jessica found me sitting on the floor 10 minutes later. "You're okay," she kept saying. "You're safe." Cameron came in a minute later. One look at my face and he understood instantly. No frustration. No embarrassment. No annoyance. Just concern. He drove me home with one hand on the steering wheel and the other wrapped around mine the whole way. That week I started therapy again. Not because Cameron pushed me. Because he made me believe I deserved to heal. Dr. Chen. Dr. Lisa Chen specialized in trauma recovery. Soft lighting. Quiet office. Bookshelves filled with titles about survival and nervous systems and rebuilding trust. She helped me understand something important. What Derek did wasn't love. It was control. And control leaves fingerprints on your brain long after the person is gone. You survived exactly the way your body thought it needed to survive, she told me once. That sentence stayed with me. For months, therapy felt like excavating ruins, finding pieces of myself underneath the damage. Slowly, the fear stopped owning every room I entered. Slowly, life started feeling bigger again. 7 months into dating Cameron, I saw Derek at the grocery store. Frozen food aisle. 10 feet away. My body reacted before my brain did. Every alarm went off at once. Derek looked up, saw me, and froze. For half a second we just stared at each other. Then something happened I never thought I'd see. He looked nervous. Actually nervous. His eyes flicked around like he expected someone else to be there. Like he was calculating risk. Then he grabbed his cart and walked away. Fast. I stood there staring after him. Then I started laughing. Right there beside frozen vegetables. Because I finally understood something. Derek had never been powerful. He'd just spent years making sure nobody stood beside me. The second I wasn't isolated anymore, he became small. That night I told Cameron what happened. "He ran from you," Cameron said, grinning. "From you," I corrected. Cameron shook his head. "No. From consequences." Then he looked at me carefully. "I didn't make your world smaller, Madison." His voice was calm, certain. "I made sure nobody else could." That line stayed with me. 3 days later, I got a Facebook message. "You dated Derek Morrison, right?" My stomach dropped instantly. Her name was Amber, 23, already trapped in the beginning stages of the same nightmare. We met at a coffee shop downtown. The second she sat down, I recognized the look in her eyes. Careful, hyper-aware, trying not to upset invisible landmines. I told her everything. Not softened. Not filtered. Everything. As I talked, her face slowly changed. Not disbelief. Recognition. "He checks my phone," she admitted quietly. "He says it's because his ex traumatized him." That's what he told me about the woman before me too. Amber went pale. "You can leave," I told her. "You're allowed to leave before it gets worse." 2 days later she did. And Derek lost his mind. Amber called me crying just after midnight. "He's outside my apartment." I was already grabbing my keys. Cameron stopped me halfway to the door. "You're shaking." "Derek's there." 1 second of silence. Then Cameron grabbed his truck keys. "Okay," he said. "Let's go." Derek's car sat across from Amber's building. Engine off. Lights dark. Watching. Cameron parked behind him and stepped out. No anger. No dramatic energy. Just controlled certainty. He knocked twice on Derek's window. Even from the truck, I watched Derek's confidence disappear in real time. First annoyance. Then recognition. Then fear. Real fear. A minute later, Derek drove away. Fast. When Cameron got back in the truck, I asked, "What did you say?" "Nothing complicated." He shrugged. I just reminded him that predators only act brave when they think nobody's watching. 3 weeks later, Cameron fought for the regional title. 5 rounds. Blood everywhere. Crowd screaming. By round 4, his eye was split open. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. His opponent kept forcing him into the clinch, Cameron's weakest position. Then halfway through the 5th round, something shifted. Cameron adjusted. 1 step left. 1 feint. 1 brutal combination. The final punch landed so clean the entire arena reacted at once. The referee jumped in. The crowd exploded. Cameron won. And for the first time in years, I cried without fear attached to it. Just joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. Afterward in the locker room, he hugged me so tightly my feet left the floor. "We did it," he whispered. I laughed through tears. "No, you did." Cameron pulled back slightly. "No." He touched his forehead against mine. "You gave me something worth fighting for. Not every moment was perfect. That mattered too." Months later, Cameron lost a fight in Vegas. Close decision. Veteran opponent. Smart footwork. Back in the hotel room, he sat on the edge of the bed staring at the floor. "I wanted to win that for you." I sat beside him. "I don't need you undefeated." He looked up. "I need you alive. Healthy. Home with me. That's it." Something in his shoulders loosened. That was the moment I realized Cameron carried pressure too. He wasn't invincible. He was just trying very hard to protect the people he loved. The proposal happened in Phoenix. Tiny hotel room. Fight week. 11 at night. Cameron looked more nervous than he ever had before stepping into a cage. That alone should have warned me. Then he pulled out the ring box. "Madison," he said, voice rough. "There's no perfect moment for this. There's just you. And I'm done waiting." I started crying before he even finished asking. He laughed nervously. "Is that a yes or a catastrophic no?" "Yes," I choked out. "Yes, obviously yes." His hands shook, putting the ring on my finger. The next night, he won his fight. Then pointed at me during the post-fight interview and said, "That's my fiancé." I thought the arena roof might come off. The legal case started because another woman hired a private investigator before Derek could completely isolate her. That changed everything. Soon there were 5 of us. 5 stories. Same patterns. Same manipulation. Same fear. Derek took a plea deal. He had to. Too much evidence. Too many women. Too many years. When the prosecutor called to say it was over, I just sat in silence for a minute. Not because I was emotional. Because my body literally didn't know what to do with safety yet. That kind of fear rewires you. But eventually even rewired things can heal. We got married at sunset. String lights. Austin Hills. 40 people. Cameron stood at the altar in a dark blue suit, looking like a man who could either win a bar fight or build you a house with his bare hands. Then he saw me, and his entire face changed. That look almost broke me, because Derek used to look at me like ownership. Cameron looked at me like choice. During his vows he said, "I promise to fight fair. I promise to stand beside you, not in front of you. I promise to make your world bigger, not smaller." There are sentences that rearrange your life. That was one of them. 3 years earlier, a smile at Target had started one of the worst nights of my life. Last week, I went back. Same store. Same aisle. A stranger smiled at me while reaching for paper towels. I smiled back. And nothing happened. No fear. No panic. No scanning exits. Just a normal human moment. I sat in my car afterward and cried quietly for about 30 seconds. Because freedom doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it arrives as the absence of terror. Then I drove home. To Cameron. To the oak tree. To the life Derek never managed to destroy. Home. I'm not going to say abuse makes you stronger. It doesn't. It breaks things. Important things. Trust. Safety. Identity. The real strength comes later. The rebuilding. The choosing to live anyway. The refusing to stay small. Derek spent years trying to shrink my life. Cameron did the opposite. He made space. That's the difference between dangerous men and strong men. Dangerous men want control. Strong men understand restraint. Derek wanted ownership. Cameron wanted partnership. Derek made my world smaller. Cameron made it infinite. And that's the whole story. If this story stayed with you, that means you felt something real inside it. Maybe you recognized Derek. Maybe you recognized Madison. Maybe you recognized yourself. And if you're still living in fear right now, listen carefully. Fear lies. Isolation lies. Control lies. Your life can become bigger again. If you enjoyed this story, leave a comment below. What was the moment you realized someone truly loved you instead of trying to control you? Like, subscribe. And if you want more cinematic emotional stories like this one, the next video is waiting for you. And remember, you are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to feel safe. You are allowed to be loved without fear. Go live your life.